So in this video, we're talking about series. Now, to get to a series, all we're going to do is take the terms of a sequence and add them all up. That's all it is. So it's kind of taking a series one step further. So I've got a couple examples here. Just like sequences, when we have a series, they can be finite, which means they eventually stop. Or, as you see in example 6, you can have an infinite series, which goes on theoretically forever. Again, we're just adding up the terms of our sequence. We can write series using what's called sigma notation. This capital M that's turned on that side is the Greek letter sigma. It's actually a capital sigma. What we're going to have here is a number on the bottom that represents what term we start with. We're the first term. And then we're going to go all the way up to in this particular example, we'll go up to the fifth term. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, and then every time we go, we're going to plug in everywhere we see an I. So for instance, we would plug in 3 times 1, which is 3. Then we would go 3 times 2, which is 6. 3 times 3, which is 9. 3 times 4, which is 12. And then finally 3 times 5, which is 15. And this sigma just means add all that information up. For an infinite sequence, here in example 8, it's the same idea, but it's just dot, dot, dot. You would keep going all the way to infinity, so you would never ever finish. Obviously, it's going to be a lot easier to work with finite series as compared to infinite series. So we can use our calculators to find the sum of a finite series. We cannot use our calculators to directly find the sum of an infinite series. It can be done, but we're not going to talk about it in this class. That's a little bit more advanced stuff. So we're just going to focus on finding the sum of a finite series. So let's use our calculator. Okay, so calculator, it's going to be similar to what we did for sequence. In fact, it's just one extra step. So first off, we want to go second stat. This time we're going to go to the math menu, and it's going to be option 5 for sum, because that's what that capital sigma means. Now we want to do our sequence like we did in the previous video. So second stat, go to the ops menu, option 5 for sequence. Now we're going to type in our rule for sequence. Instead of I'm going to type x, so 2x. The next thing we put in is comma x. To tell the calculator what variable we're using, comma. Now we tell it what number we're starting with. So I'm going to start in the first position. And comma, I want to tell the calculator what position or what term to stop with. In this case, the number, and that's always the number on top. In this case, it's 6. Okay, so when I do that, I'm going to get one solid number, which means it's 42. So let's talk about what the calculator is doing in the background. So essentially it's saying 2 times 1 plus 2 times 2 plus 2 times 3 plus 2 times 4 plus 2 times 5 plus 2 times 6. Again, I'm just using my rule. I'm starting off at 1 and going all the way to 6. Now again, to type that in the calculator, what we did was sum sequence 2x for our rule, x for our variable, 1 because we started with this first position in our sequence, 6 because we went to the 6th position in our sequence. That's where we stop and close it up. And that's what gave me the 42. Here we have another example. This time we're going to start in the 3rd position and go all the way up to the 6th position. So let's go in our calculator again. Very similar to what we just did. So second stat, we can start off in the math menu, option 5 for sum. Second stat, go to the ops menu, option 5 for sequence. And then we're going to type in our rule. Instead of k, I'm going to type in x. So 2 plus x squared. Now, comma x, because that's the variable that I'm using, comma our starting position, which is always on the bottom, so 3. Comma our top position, which is a 6, and then enter, and I get 94. So this sum, the sum of this series is 94. And essentially what's going on in the background is the calculator is saying 2 plus 3 squared, so that's one whole thing, plus 2 plus 4 squared, That's the whole thing, plus 2 plus 5 squared. That's the whole thing, plus 2 plus 6 squared. That's the whole thing. And so it's adding all those up and going to give me 94. Again, to get that in the calculator, what we typed in was sum, sequence, typed in our rule, 2 plus x squared, typed in the variable we're using, typed in our starting position, which is always on the bottom, so 3, typed in our final position, which is always on the top, so 6, and then just hit enter, and that's it. So again, this was just simply an intro to a series, which is taking a sequence and adding up all the terms in that sequence. Obviously, the biggest thing you need to focus on is how to find the sum of a finite sequence using your calculator. Let me know if I can help.